Mayor Martin, you may begin the meeting.
All right then. Welcome everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order for March 16th, 2021. This is a regular council meeting. I'll ask everyone to turn their cell phones off or place them on vibrate if you could, just so it doesn't interrupt the meeting. And I'll remind council of the declaration of pecuniary interest if it arises. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had a space in here for silent reflection, and we removed it because of all the things going on. We were having enough silence on our own, so we took that off of there. But we're just over a year into this pandemic, or over the year since it was declared, and I just want to thank council, staff, and all the residents for working with us here. It's been a tough go, but we at HBM have managed to stay open and carry on with our daily business, not without the challenges, but we managed to keep moving forward. And with the vaccines rolling out, we're starting to see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but we do have a long way to go. So we're really seeing a lot of COVID fatigue setting in with all these protocols and things that are changing every week. But you know, the big saying this year has been, we're in this together. And I just want to let everyone know that we're going to continue to support each other, and we'll get through this over the next several months. But that's all I had to say with that. And now I'll move on with the meeting here. So just thanks everyone. So we have minutes here from the regular council meeting of March 2nd. I'll look for a motion to approve them if they're in order. Moved by Councillor Webb, seconded by Councillor Pomeroy. All in favor? And that's carried. Our next business here is Committee of Adjustment, and I'll look for a motion to for Deputy Mayor Giroux to go in the chair to chair that.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Ellis, seconded by Councillor Pomeroy. All in favor? And that's carried. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
I have to find my mute button. Thank you, Mayor Martin, members of council. I will call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order and remind the members of the committee of their requirements to declare any pecuniary interest or nature thereof if it should arise. This public meeting is held under Section 45 of the Planning Act and its regulations. I will now ask the planning consultant. We have 4 minor variances to deal with today, committee, and I will now ask our planning department to start with the first one.
Thank you very much, and good morning to the committee. The first one is minor variance application A-02-21. The subject property information is as follows. The property owner is Grant Richmond. The municipal address is 95 Fire Route 85S, roll number 153100007-42000. Part lot 22, concession 8. The area is 1.51 acres. The zoning is seasonal residential, and the official plan designation is shoreline residential. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from section 11.2.2.1C, which states that the minimum rear or side yard setback for an accessory structure on a seasonal residential property with an area greater than 1.5 acres shall not be less than 9 meters. The effect of this application is to permit a side yard setback of 6.7 meters for a 1.5-story detached garage with a ground floor area of 91.8 square meters and a height of 5.6 meters. And those numbers are in keeping with the requirements of our comprehensive zoning bylaw. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance A-02-21 for a side yard setback of 6.7 meters with the following conditions: that the construction be done in accordance with the site plan submitted, that any requisite approval be received by applicable approval authorities, that a building permit be issued within 12 months of the approval of this application, and that the balance of information in the report be received. As I mentioned, this application is to permit a reduced side yard to accommodate a garage on a seasonal residential property. This application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance and is in keeping with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. It is my recommendation that this application be approved.
Thank you for your report, Laura. For the record, is the applicant present with us this morning?
Yes, he is.
I am. Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition of this application this morning? Hearing none, I'll say it one more time. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anything else that could be added here this morning? By hearing none, before I open it up to the questions to the committee for questions or comments, I have a couple of my own, Laura, just small clarifications for myself. In your report, it referred to the septic tank. Would like to move the garage over further from the septic tank to make it easier, but it didn't say the minimum distance from the septic tank that you can be for a building structure. Do you have those figures?
So through you, Deputy Mayor, I don't, but I know that the minimum is 17 feet from a structure to the septic bed, but that can change if the septic is a raised septic. So that may have come into play there.
Okay,
But on-
thank you.
On the site plan, it does show the distance from the garage to the septic.
Yes, it's 24 feet, I do believe.
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. There was also a mention of a new driveway. And will that result in any cutting of the beautiful trees that are around there?
So I would have to refer to Mr. Richmond to answer that question.
Thank you. If you could answer that, Mr. Richmond, that would help the committee.
Yes, sir. I just had trouble finding my mute button there. Same as the one before. Yes, there will be several trees will have to be cut. It's fairly forested in the back area back there. It's a long way back from the water, but there would be several trees cut to extend the driveway. I would continue to use the existing driveway in, but then circle around and go back out. Obviously, same as you, I would minimize the cutting, but there will be several that need to be cut.
No, it may not have any bearing. It's just a question that I keep for my own notes.
Mhm.
All right, thank you for that. I will now open it up for questions or comments from the member of the Committee of Adjustment. Go ahead, Mayor Martin.
Spacebar usually works, but not working this morning. So anyways, I'd be prepared to make a motion that we approve application A0221. Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you for that motion. I have a motion on the floor.
I'll
From the
second the
committee?
motion, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
We have a mover, Mayor Martin, and Councillor I'll second that motion. All in favor of the motion? That motion is approved. Thank you. So we can move on.
All right, so application number 2 for today is minor variance application A-03-21. The subject property information is as follows. The property owners are Paulo and Anna Santos. The municipal address is 502 Fire Route 75. The roll number is 153101005272000. It's part lot 14, concession 5. The area is 0.89 acres. The zoning is seasonal residential and the official plan designation is shoreline residential. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from section 4.10b A2, which states that an enlargement or alteration to an existing structure does not create a further deficiency or increase the degree of an existing deficiency with respect to any requirement of this bylaw. The effect of this application is to permit an increase in height to the existing recreational dwelling, which is the cottage, located at 16.3 meters from the high water mark. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance A-03-21 for the increase of height to a cottage from 21.5 feet to 26.5 feet to be approved with the following conditions: that the construction of the foundation be done in accordance with the site plan submitted, that any requisite approval be received by the applicable approval authorities, that a building permit be issued within 12 months of the approval of this application, and that the balance of the information in my report be received. This application is to increase the height of an existing cottage by 4 feet. As noted in the report and picture, the foundation has already been repaired and the cottage is floating on piers until the application for the minor variance is approved and a building permit is granted. We have received comment from Crow Valley Conservation Authority and they determined that they do not have any concerns with this application. This application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance and is in keeping with the provincial policy statement and growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. It is my recommendation that this application be approved.
Thank you for your report. And I will again ask, is the applicant present this morning? I guess not. We'll go on. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? I guess there isn't anyone out there this morning. Once again, Laura, before I open it up to the Committee of Adjustment for comments or questions and comments, it's obvious, I think, to the Committee of Adjustment that this application has come in backwards. There hasn't been a building permit issued yet because that the minor variance should have come first, I would assume. I shouldn't assume anything. That's the first one. So we find ourselves, this committee is responsible and it's their duty to make decisions on these, and we will. And maybe this information would have no bearing whatsoever on the outcome of the decision. But it would be nice to have that in the report. So that's just a comment. The other thing that you might explain for my knowledge, and maybe I misread something here, but is there a change in the square footage now that there's a foundation, if you want to call it that, put underneath the cottage?
So no, the square footage is the same. There may be a crawl space underneath, but it's only increased by exactly 4 feet. So the cottage before was basically sinking into the ground. It was on piers and the piers were sinking. So that's why they raised it to repair the foundation. So it would be at most a 3 foot crawl space.
All right, thank you. I will now open it up to the Committee of Adjustment for any questions or comments. Mayor Martin?
Yeah, so with this going that route, I would imagine that the charges for the permits and things would be, there's an increase in charges for that when something like this happens. So that'll be taken care of?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, because they proceeded without going through the proper channels, there will be a doubling in fees for our building permit application. The planning fees remain the same. There may be an increase in application fees from Crow Valley Conservation Authority.
Any further questions or comments, Mayor Martin?
No, that's good.
Any members of the committee move this forward? Mayor Martin?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve this application with the appropriate fees to be charged.
All right, thank you. Mayor Martin has made a motion that we'll move this forward with the proper fees that should accompany the building permit. And I think I had a seconder from Councillor Webb. Is that correct, Councillor Webb? Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor. I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor of the motion? The motion is approved.
Thank you very much. We are now on to our third application of the day, which is minor variance application A-04-21. The subject property information is as follows. The property owners are Mark Philippe Piche and Beth Hornby. The municipal address is 1205 Jack Lake, water access only. The roll number is 1531007-42500. Part lot 29, concession 8. The area is 0.68 acres. The zoning is seasonal residential and the official plan designation is shoreline residential. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from section 4.37, which states no new building or structure shall be located within 30 meters of the existing high water mark. The effect of this application is to permit the construction of a 400 square foot addition located 7.6 meters to the deck and 8.5 meters to the proposed addition from the high water mark. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance A-04-21 for the construction of an addition with an area of 400 square feet and a high water mark setback of 7.6 meters to the deck and 8.5 meters to the cottage to be approved with the following conditions: that the construction be done in accordance with the site plan submitted, that any requisite approval be received by the applicable approval authorities, that a building permit be issued within 12 months of the approval of this application, and that the balance of the information of my report be received. This application, as noted, is to permit a 400 square foot addition with deck and existing cottage located at 7.6 meters to the deck and 8.5 meters to the cottage from the high water mark. It is not getting any closer to the water than what is currently existing. As discussed in my report, this application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance and is in keeping with the provincial policy statement and growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. It is my recommendation that this application be approved.
All right, Laura, thank you for your presentation this morning on this application. Is there anyone, is the applicant present, first of all?
Yeah, good morning. Beth and I are both here.
Thank you for that. We'll put that in noted in our minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application this morning? Hearing none, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application that can add anything to it?
I would like to show my support. Ian Grinnell.
All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Ian, could you just state your address for us?
Yes, we're the adjoining property to the south. And so it's 1207 Jack Lake, water access only. Would you like the roll number?
No, that's
No,
okay.
that's
Thank
fine.
you.
All right, thank you for your comments. I have one quick question, and it perhaps might be in the report. I looked back, but I didn't see it. And once again, it may have no bearing on the outcome of this application. It's just for my own notes. Has there been any other minor variances attached to this property?
Not that I could find, no.
Thank you very much for that. And now I'll open it up to the Committee of Adjustment for questions or comments. Councillor Ellis, you have the floor.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Giroux, this is a very straightforward application, and so I would move that we approve the application I'm looking for the number, application, and anyway, I would move that we approve this application following the recommendations from the planning consultant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Ellis has moved the recommendation. Move forward. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Webb will second that motion. All in favor of the motion? That motion is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we are now on to our fourth application and final application of the day. Well, of the morning so far. The subject property is for minor variance application A-05-21. The property owners are Christina Bianco and Sonia Pagliarolio. I'm sure I butchered that. I'm so sorry, Sonia. The agent is Black Point Construction. The municipal address is 2 Antler Trail. The roll number is 153101007666414. It is part of subdivision plan PVLCP 73, level 1, unit 14. The area is 0.68 acres. The zoning is seasonal residential, and the official plan designation is shoreline residential. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from section 4.22.1B1, which states that the maximum aggregate area of all docks below the high water mark shall be 46.45 square meters. The effect of this application is to permit a dock with an aggregate area of 69.5 square meters. My recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance A-05-21 for a dock with an area of 69.5 square meters, inclusive of a 20.4 square meter boat lift with non-permanent canopy, to be approved with the following conditions: that the construction of the dock be done in accordance with the site plan submitted, that any requisite approval be received by the applicable approval authorities, that a building permit be issued within 12 months of the approval of this application, and that the balance of this information in the report be received. This application is to permit a dock with a gross area larger than the maximum permitted in the comprehensive zoning bylaw. There was a letter of opposition from the Jack Lake Association, which raised concerns regarding the projection of the dock, as well as some concerns about the non-permanent canopy for the proposed boat lift. I'd just like to take a moment right now to discuss some of those concerns. So I just wanted to let the committee know that a canopy on a dock is a permitted use as of right. So I confirmed that with both DM Wills and FO10, and they're both in agreement that a non-permanent canopy is just, you can have it on any dock. You don't have to ask permission for it, provided it is non-permanent. Second, the boat lift is primarily underwater, so there will not be a visual disturbance to the shoreline. Finally, I'd just like to remind the committee that the protection of a view was brought forward to Ontario municipal boards several times over the past couple decades. And it was determined that a view is not protected on the lake. So that's just something to keep in mind through all applications with our waterfront properties. Not just this one, but this one as well. So finally, this application is simply to increase the size of the dock. The non-permanent canopy is there just for transparency for the committee. So this application does meet the 4 tests of the minor variance, and it is in keeping with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. It is my recommendation that this application be approved.
Thank you for your report. I will now ask, is the applicant present this morning?
I am. My name is Holly Richards-Conley, and I am the agent for this file.
So, all right, we'll duly note that in minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application this morning? Hearing none, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application this morning? All right. Before I open it up to comments or questions from the Committee of Adjustment? We are presently going, later in this meeting today, we are going to discuss application, not applications, to determine whether boathouses are going to be permitted or not permitted on Jack's Lake. And Laura's explained to us that she's had consultation with Futan and whoever, that portable shelters on the docks are permitted. So I will ask Laura, is that written anywhere in any of our bylaws?
So no, it's not written expressly, but we do have a provision in our bylaw which states that all accessory structures are permitted to have an awning. So this would technically be classified as an awning because it is non-permanent in nature. So with that discussion that I had with Foten and DM Wills, it was determined that this could be seen as an awning. Generally, people do not ask for permission to put these up on their docks, being that they're non-permanent. They just do it. And it was kind of agreed between everybody that I spoke to, Foten and DM Wills, that it would be a permitted use as of right.
Well, thank you for your comments. And I would just say to that the Committee of Adjustment here is the final vessel of this, unless of course their decision is challenged. But I think we need further discussion on this. We don't want to get into a situation where boathouses are going to become non-permanent. They'd be put up in the spring and taken down in the fall. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying, for me, I think this notes further discussion, but that's going to be entirely up to the Committee of Adjustment, which I'm now going to open up for them. They may have questions, they may not. Questions or comments from the Committee of Adjustment. Floor is open. Councillor Webb?
Yeah, I just had a question about the diagram here. What part of the dock is permanent? Just the 8x14 connected to the shore, or? So that
Yes,
would remove
the only permanent part of this dock is the 8x14 structure. It will be 6 steel piles, so limited disturbance on the bed of the lake. And the only reason that was sort of a part of the plan was because of the shallowness of the water. In order to bring the boat safely into the boat lift, we needed an extra 8 feet in order to sort of get the depth for the boat. So the only permanent part of this entire structure is the 8x14 permanent dock along the shore.
so everything else goes in and comes out?
Everything else goes in, comes out. The majority of the dock itself is actually floating, so not attached to the bed of the lake in any way. Other than the 6 piles along the shoreline, the only other part of the structure that would touch the bed of the lake would be during the summer months, and it's the 4 feet of the boat lift.
Okay, the original dock was what, 49 square meters?
The original dock was, yeah, let me just do the calculation, the 416 square feet. So the 38.64 square meters. And then the proposed dock, the permanent, is the 112 square feet. So we're only technically, if in regards to the dock system, we are 2.6 square meters over the dock. And then we're adding the boat lift with the canopy.
Okay, and what is there, you referenced that, I don't know, the water's not, but what's the reasoning behind the expanding of the dock? Like, why is the dock?
The additional 8x14?
Yeah, or, well, yeah, I guess whatever, why is, to me, it's, you already got a pretty big dock there. So I mean, what's the impotence behind making it bigger? Like you said that they had trouble getting their boat in because it was too shallow. Is that why the dock has to be made bigger? I don't know.
Yeah, so
They just want a big dock.
So let me just pull open my actual diagram of the dock. So we're asking for the 8x14 permanent dock. So that 8 feet is sort of the depth away from the shoreline. So we've got the shoreline, we're asking for 8 additional feet. Last summer, at the lowest point, at the 44-foot mark, which was the dock length without this permanent dock, there was only 12 inches of water at the front of the boat. And it is very, very rocky along the shoreline. And the boat was almost smashing into the rocks on that shoreline. So the 8 feet is to gain the little bit of depth so that the boat lift, when it's sitting in the water, the boat can safely drive in and out of the boat lift.
Yep, thank you.
Comments, Councillor Pomeroy?
Yes, I'm going to refer back to what you said earlier, Deputy Mayor Giroux, and I hope we're not, my own opinion is I don't want to approve this until we look into it a little further, because it's something that if someone else wants the same thing, we could have docks halfway across the lake. So I think we have to look into it a little further.
Mayor Martin? Thank you for your comments, Councillor Pomeroy. Mayor Martin, you have the floor.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Pomeroy with this one here. It's something that with all minor variances, as part of the process, we do leave it open that we can go out and take a look at it. And some of them, you just can't get it from a picture. It might be good if we were to, take a look at this thing and just get an understanding, because it sounds reasonable. The shallow water part of it there, and I don't know if we have it doesn't sound like we have a say with the canopy, but it just looks like one of those ones that we should probably take a look at to understand exactly what we're dealing with before we move ahead. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Ellis had the floor, Laura, before you had your hand up, so I'll give the floor to Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Giroux. Just one quick question for my own clarity. The canopy, when installed, does that in any way impede the view or visions from your neighbors or your neighbors?
It does not. It is not a walled structure. It just has 4 posts. But as Laura said, I think in this case, and planning law would back this up, that there's no protection of the view of the neighbors, even though this doesn't impede it. There's, it's not something that can be taken into consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Laura, you have the floor. Thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Holly. When would the dock be going in for council to come and get a look at it? Do you know?
I mean, until the water level is up and obviously the ice is off the lake. The actual structures, like the permanent dock part, if this was approved, wouldn't be able to go in until I think it's June 30th or July 15th, whatever the cold fish water timing window is. So summertime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, thank you for your comments, Holly. If there isn't any more further questions, I think we better have some kind of recommendation here from the Committee of Adjustment. Councillor Ellis, or go ahead, Councillor Ellis.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Giroux, just for our own clarity and making the decision on this application, I would ask that we defer it and give council a chance to have a view. And I'll leave it at that.
I'm hearing a lot of background noise here, but I do believe that you said that you making a motion to defer.
Motion to defer to give council a chance if they so desire to have a look at what's being proposed here.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to defer this application for further discussion. Is there a seconder on the motion? Councillor Pomeroy? Did I see your hand? Thank you for that. So we have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Pomeroy seconded the motion that we defer this application until we can have further discussion before we move forward. Councillor Pomeroy, your hand's up again. You're muted.
I would just like to clarify until we have a look at it. You know, drawings are great, but I think we should have a look at it to ease our own minds.
Well, that's fine, Councillor Ellis. If all the members of the committee feel that it's necessary, you would let the CAO know and the mayor know that you are going to look at it. That you will do that on your own, and you will keep your own comments until the next meeting, and that way it won't be discussed. So that's the criteria that we will go by to view this property. And that way. So the motion is still on the floor, Councillor Ellis.
If I could for you, Deputy Mayor Joe, again, just one quick question for the applicant. All of the docking will be removed in the fall, other than, of course, the permanent structure, but the other pieces of docking, including the canopy part, would be removed?
Yes, correct. It's actually a cantilever dock system, hence the permanent dock requirement, just because it has to withhand, but I'm not sure, I sent a letter back through showing a picture of it yesterday, but it basically just attaches to the shoreline and gets lifted up. So the canopy gets removed and the whole system lifts up out of the water for the protection of the fish and the ice damage.
Fine, thank you.
Councillor Martin, Mayor Martin.
Fine. Yeah, I support the motion here that we defer it until possibly May, June. It would be good to see the dock. I'm very familiar with these docks, and there is things that get in the way. It sounds like it's probably okay, but I think to be safe here, we normally deal with things like this in between May and October. So I think it's safer that we just go out, take a look at this thing, get a real feel for it, and bring it back to a future meeting. So I do support the motion.
So we do have a mover and a seconder, is that right, Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, yes. We have moved by Councillor Ellis, seconded by Councillor Pomeroy. I know, I'll forget the madam part for now.
I thought Bianca was doing the minutes today.
It's okay.
I apologize.
Anyhow, the motion is that the application be deferred pending an inspection by the Committee of Adjustment members on their own time.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Bob.
You're
I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor of the motion? That motion is approved. I want to thank everyone for their input today. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Holly, for being with us, and we'll move forward with this. Well, thank you. I will now take a motion to turn the meeting back over to Mayor Martin, and we can resume our regular meeting. Motion from Councillor Webb and Councillor Pomeroy. All those in favor? That motion is approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Giroux. With that, we'll move into our next item on the agenda, and that's delegations. And today we have Robert Cole with us, the regulation officer with the CDCA, Grove Valley. And he did a presentation for the board with regards to slope and erosion. So it was a really good presentation. So I asked that it be brought forward so all of council can see it for any minor variances we have in the future with regards to this. This is just the tip of the iceberg, really. There's a lot to it, and I found that out after the presentation that there's a lot to slope and erosion, and a lot of times we don't agree with it, but Robert, you can, show council your presentation here, and it might help in the future. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys inviting me to do this presentation. I will just load it up here and we'll get her started. Let's see. Please let me know when you see this presentation fully, and we'll get this started.
We're live.
There we are. So today I'd like to do a presentation on apparent valley and erosion hazards. Essentially, this is determining the regulated area and required setbacks as per the Conservation Authorities Act. First, I'd like to go over the written definition of what the regulated area is for the Crow Valley Conservation Authority. Under Section 2 of CVCA Regulation 15906 defines our regulated area into 5 key items. There's 2.1a, I, and II, apparent valleys. Then there's 2.1a, III, which are floodplains plus a 15-meter regulated or regulatory allowance. We have 2.1b, hazards, which also includes floodplains. So there's a little bit of redundancy there, plus a 15-meter regulatory allowance. There's 2.1c, which is wetlands, and then 2.1d, which is areas around wetlands. So 30 meters from wetlands less than 2 hectares and 120 meters from wetlands over 2 hectares. I want to note that in our legislation, Section 2 does have a statement that if there's ever a difference between what is on a map and the written description prevails. Simply put, that means from a permitting perspective, we base whether or not a permit is required and any restrictions related to it to what is on the ground rather than what is on a map. So in some cases, I have MNRF wetland layers that are very inaccurate, showing a large wetland where there isn't one. And then there's other cases where there's no wetland shown, but there's evidently a wetland on the ground, so we would regulate around that as well. So from a perspective, it can change a fair bit because it all is based on the available data at the time, and we go with what's on the ground. So what is an apparent valley? All lakes and rivers in the CVCA are part of a riverine system, and as such, they can have a defined valley wall. So the bank of a lake or river is not necessarily the valley. So a lot of lakes will have a small rise right at the shoreline, some non-hazardous lands, and then rise up to a valley beyond it. We would go, can you guys hear me? Just have a warning about
Excuse me, Robert, I
internet.
think the video, I'm still stuck on the title page here. I'm not sure if everybody else is seeing the same thing, but we don't seem to be
Okay,
scrolling through the presentation.
Yeah, so I'm on page 3 here. So
Yep,
let's see
you're on
if I've
page
got-
3. I'm
We're
on
stuck
page
on
1.
page 1.
The
Okay.
internet at the Crow isn't very good, so we went through this before. It's tough out there, so.
Yeah, if you guys will bear with me for 1 minute, I will go grab my work cell phone and I'll get a hotspot going to get a bit better internet. 1 moment. It was working fine for everybody else's presentation, but I'll be right back.
Yeah, we had issues at the Crow. With the internet out there, it's not very good, so.
Mayor Martin?
Yeah.
I wonder if all council has their presentation up in front of them anyway. We can follow along if they do. Maybe they
Yeah, that
don't.
might be what we have to do. He's probably just gonna link it up here to get a better signal, but if we have to, it wouldn't hurt anyways. It just helps for the public to be able to see it, but.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, and through
We
you,
need
Mayor
to-
Martin, we can screen share it on our end if necessary. If it's not working on Robert's end, we'll handle it from here.
Okay.
Yeah,
might work
I'll Just bear with me 1 second and I'll got my mobile hotspot here, so it'll come up here shortly.
It's up now here.
No. Okay, so hopefully things will move a lot more smoothly now. Okay, here's my presentation. All right, so all lakes within the CVCA are part of the river and system and can have a defined valley wall. The bank of a lake or river is not necessarily the entirety of the valley. There are many lakes and even the Crow River and the North River where you'll have a small bank that is close to the shore of the river and non-hazardous valley lands. And then there's an additional hill beyond it. And the top of that hill would be what is considered the entire valley of the watercourse or lake. And it is assumed that there is an equivalent point on the other side of the river or lake. Now, that may not be an actual slope and top of slope valley. There's a perfect example is actually with sections of Belmont Lake, where on one side of the lake, you'll have a very obvious slope down to the river, and it's a very obvious valley wall on one side. But if you go to the opposite side near Sawmill Bay, it is very gentle sloped, and the regulated area there is defined by the floodplain and the associated wetlands, because there isn't really an apparent valley at that location because it is so gentle. But it is considered equivalent from a legislative point of view. So this next slide is an example of where we would consider an apparent valley. So the top of slope is well behind this house. This house actually did get a permit prior to us really concentrating on erosion hazards. So I got contacted because of it, because there was erosion along the side here. I'll just grab my laser pointer. So there's erosion along the side here and then along here, where you would have, or there was gullying occurring, and it was actually the point of potentially creating issues with the foundation. So they had me out there to help figure out what the best ways to stabilize was. This is actually from on top of the house. There's a deck on the roof looking out over the lake. The highest point of the valley is still significantly higher and behind from looking out on the lake here. So using Peterborough County mapping, they do have LiDAR, which is a very, very precise elevation data. They use 50 centimeter by 50 centimeter pixels, and they create the average. So you're able to get a...
I think we lost him. Technology at its finest.
The hotspot was too hot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think he's gone completely. Is he, Bianca?
It looked like he's still in the participant list.
It probably would have been better to have done it with your, with you moving the slides.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin. If Robert's able to rejoin us, we will handle the slideshow from our end. We'll just give him a moment to reconnect, and if not, we may have to try this another time.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just give it a couple minutes here and see if he there. No.
There he is.
There he is.
Okay, so Robert, we're going to screen share on our end, hopefully to avoid those technology issues, if that works for you.
You're muted. You're muted, Robert.
I'll just give you a heads up when I need you to change the slides.
Yeah, that'd be
Yep.
great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Okay. So do you want me to see if I can fire you a quick email with the presentation?
We have it here.
Yeah, it's up on the screen now.
Perfect. Right, I guess you'd have it from the board meeting. Perfect. Okay, so we are now on page 5. 4, okay. So the did you guys catch the description of the apparent valley on this location and the erosion issues we were having?
Yeah. Yeah, we did, Robert.
Okay. So perfect. All right, so I'll get you to go to the next slide. Next slide, please.
So the cross section.
So, yeah, so this cross section was derived using Peterborough County LiDAR data. It's very precise, so it does show the slope quite accurately. So the purple dashed line is what's considered a stable slope as per the MNRF technical guide on erosion hazards. And the brown is the existing slope. So they put this dwelling right at the front or at the top of a very steep section of slope, which was steeper than 2 to 1 in a few sections. And then behind it is what's considered a potentially non-hazardous slope because it is gentler than 3 to 1. I think that one was closer to 4 to 1. But the true top of slope is actually about 105 meters back or 100 to 105 meters back. So we have, a very, very unstable section, fairly stable section, and then the projection between the two is actually fairly close to the actual top of slope. So if you could please go to the next slide. This is looking at an overhead of the map. So if we were just using the assumed flood hazard, which was often used on lakes that don't have an evaluated floodplain, we would have that assumption that the first 15 meters are potentially flood hazard and then a 15-meter regulatory allowance beyond it. Obviously, on slopes like this, flooding is likely not going to be any issue. But with the slope itself, it is potentially an issue. So the green line is the top of slope using the projected top of slope. The setback, in this case, I have it as 8 meters. Normally it's 6 meters, but the 8 meters is to account for the 0 to 2 meter erosion at the shoreline. I'll describe that a bit more detail going forward. And then there's the 120 meter regulated area that gives us the 15 meters beyond.
Councillor Webb has a question there, Robert.
One thing I do want to note is that we are not creating. Pardon?
Robert, Councillor Webb had a question there. I don't know. Did you want to ask it at the end, or do you want to do it as we go through?
Oh, I just had. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, just for reference, I was wondering where this property was. That's all I was.
Yeah, I don't think they disclosed.
This one specifically is actually in another township.
Okay.
This is a property actually in North Kawartha, but we do have examples in HBM that could work. This is just one that I had a lot of dealings with just from, it covered all the topics for as an example.
Thank you, Robert. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. So the one thing I did want to note is we're not adding regulated area when we're looking at the slopes. This is because of the way that the legislation is written. We have a legal obligation to manage development within the described regulated area. So hypothetically speaking, if somebody was to build in the slope and we said that they didn't need a permit, but it was within our area that they technically did, if something happened to that development, we could potentially be held liable because that was our regulatory responsibility to help manage the adding area. We're just regulating what we should have in the first place. Anyways, if I could please get the next slide.
It is up there now, Robert.
So, yep, perfect. Erosion hazards. Erosion hazards are defined and shown in the MNRF Technical Guide, River and Stream Systems, the Erosion Hazard Limit, Technical Guide for short, as that is a mouthful. Essentially, erosion hazards consist of three parts. We have the toe erosion portion, which can be assessed by anybody using the technical guide. We have the stable slope allowance, which again in the technical guide is that 3-to-1 slope, that purple line in that cross section, and then the 6-meter emergency access. Next slide, please.
It's there.
Okay, so in order to determine toe erosion, we would need to do a site visit and assess the type of material at the bank, as well as the type or amount of erosion forces that are there. And this would be using table 3 of the technical guide. So the toe erosion, again, is based on what force is there and what kind of bank material is there. So looking at the drawing there, if the water soil interface was granite, for example, we would use a 0 to 2 meter 100-year erosion rate at that water interface. Some bedrock is more susceptible to freeze thaw, breaking it apart. Some is very solid and may never change in the next 1,000 years, but others will have that up to 2 meter breakup over a 100-year period. So that would change the distance that we would account for toe erosion. If that interface is sand, for example, that is very easily eroded. So we would allow for up to 15 meters over a 100-year period of shoreline movement in that in that case. So using the diagram there, if the granite was at the watercourse toe of bank intersection, then the toe of slope, we would just go from the toe of slope with a stable slope back to the top, and that would be the top of stable slope. In this example where they're showing that toe erosion allowance, that would be an example of if it was sand. So we would use that 15 meters for the toe erosion, and from that point measure back the 3-to-1 slope to give you the stable slope allowance. Next slide, please.
Did we lose him?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. It looks like we lost Robert here for a brief moment. We're trying to get him back.
Yeah, we might have to speed this up a little bit, Bob. Maybe we should have done it when we could have him in person sometime for it.
Yeah, and we can defer this, Mayor Martin, and pick it up another time.
Yeah, it's because it was a good presentation, but if we're going to keep going in and out of this thing, it's just going to drag out. But I just wonder if we should ask him if he could come back again. Go ahead, Hart.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think he's almost done, Jim. He's only got about three pages left here. So if we can
Okay.
get it back, I think.
If everybody's okay with that, I am. It's just, yeah.
I think Robert's back. Is he back in? Is he back?
Yeah, I'm back. My apologies, guys. This has been a painful on everybody's account. I appreciate your guys' patience. So I don't know, did you catch my full blurb until I asked for the next slide?
Yeah, we're at stable slope allowance.
Perfect. Okay. So without a geotechnical or hazard assessment, the technical guide uses a projected stable slope of 3:1, so 3 units horizontal to 1 vertical. The technical guide will allow the CA to use a gentler slope as a threshold if conditions justify it. So for example, if we have a high disturbance area that is a sandy, very sandy slope, we could have that threshold be changed from the 3:1 to a 4:1 or 5:1 if it justifies it. So a professional assessment to encroach on the projected stable slope and determine slope stability may be required. So if we have a property that is deeper than the 3:1, but it is large boulders or broken granite or bedrock, we would request that if they want to go closer than the 3:1 projection and then the setback, that they get a geotechnical study done, at the very least, the phase 1 of the technical guide assessment. A geotechnical assessment for the guide looks at the stability of the slope from a mass movement perspective. It's a snapshot in time for the specific location, the current conditions, and using modeling, they can determine if the extra loading force or weight on the top side or any disturbance during construction could potentially result in mass movement or landslide. And I'm not talking a landslide like heavy rains in the Hollywood Hills washing out roads and hillsides completely falling down. We see it on a much smaller scale on a lot of our water courses and lakes. I'm sure everyone has been to somebody's property where just from wave action, they'll lose 6 inches to a foot of shoreline at a time that's slumping into the water. And that is essentially like our micro scale mass movement that we see. There is an example, actually, a property on the north end of Belmont Lake where the undercutting from the river resulted in fluting of material over 10 meters back from the top of bank. So you would be walking along and then there'd be these holes in this gentleman's lawn that were a result of the undercutting at the river interface. So that is a location where if that was allowed to continue, that 10-meter section of material could have slid into the river and caused an earthen dam, flooding out the lower end of Crow Lake, or not Crow Lake, Crow River, as it's flowing into Belmont. So in that location, we actually did work with them to put in bank stabilization to ensure that didn't happen. Looking at the examples that we have there, the effective hard layers, we do have a lot of areas where we have sand or loose material on top of bedrock, or the typical steep slope slides. The soft clays, we may have a few locations along the creeks and rivers that do have softer clays that could happen, but generally we deal with toe failure and foot failure, number B and C from the diagram on the left, and wave action showing the collapse of material on the shoreline. We actually deal with that a lot. It's becoming a bigger and bigger issue as people, a lot of our lakes and our watershed are becoming more popular. We have people that hadn't lost any shoreline in 50 years, but because neighbors on either side have larger big wake boats, they're starting to lose shoreline. So we are seeing it, and it's both naturally occurring, like the case with the river, or from use with large boats. So we are starting to see it. And a final note with slope stability, it only looks at the potential of landslides and mass movements at that time. It doesn't actually look at what could be happening in the future. So surface erosion really isn't accounted when they do the slope stability. But we need to really look at it because continued surface erosion and the fact that the land use may change could create potential for a landslide from gullying. If we could please get the next slide. So the emergency access. It is consistent with our flood policies, having that 6 meter allowance to the hazard. The 6 meter setback applies to the stable top of slope. This is in the case of the projected stable top of slope, or in the case of a slope being assessed and determined to be stable. The reason why we want to continue to have that 6 meter setback is to allow emergency vehicles access to the front of the dwelling, or to have equipment in case there is any work that needs to be done. So we work to maintain that setback from stable slopes to be able to address surface erosion. So this is a diagram showing how surface erosion will cause these small gullies, which get larger and larger and larger, and eventually could result in that entire slope being unstable and sloughing, which, you know, we really don't want to have that happening around people's foundations. Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, the geotechnical assessment is a snapshot in time. We need to be able to account for any changes of land use that could result in that snapshot becoming inaccurate. Next slide, please. So we're going back to the picture of my example. I had been called because of surface erosion and gullying creating issues around this foundation on the left and right of that dwelling. Just under the dwelling, you kind of see a patch of black. That is a silt fence. What you can't see is that's actually holding up about 1.5 to 2 feet of loose material that has all washed forward due to surface erosion. Because just the change in the land use has resulted in surface erosion that really was there a little bit before, but now it's dramatically worse due to the change in land use. If you look at the picture on the right, in the lower right-hand corner, that is a coconut mat roll that is trying to hold back material as well. You can see that it's a bit gray behind it. That is, again, new loose material. Essentially, is the entire quote unquote lawn that you see there is they tried seeding the loose material that is behind that silt fence to try to stabilize it. And it's going to need a lot more than just a bit of Scott's turf builder to stabilize that. So yeah, it can be a bit of an issue. Next slide, please. So to break it down into what I had described, I'll use the three sides here. So the orange at the bottom left, and then again on the top right, that is if the toe of the slope was sandy. It's a lot easier to, from a visual perspective, when I'm dealing with 100 meters, to use the full 15. So that is accounting for the 15 meters of toe erosion that could potentially happen. So from the extent of that 15 meters, we have a 3-to-1 slope, which is the solid reddish purple line. And then we have the 6 meter access setback. And then we have an additional 9 meters that is considered developable. So the access setback of 6 meters plus the 9 meters that is developable is the 15 meters regulatory allowance for my regulation. So we would be going from the projected stable top of slope, which is at 105 meters, 15 meters for toe erosion, 6 meters for the setback to allow access of equipment, and then everything behind that to the limit of my regulated area is considered developable. Next slide, please. Now, any questions?
Thank you, Robert. And yeah, it's too bad the technical things happened there, but yeah, this is something that over the years we've all, had some issues with. Sometimes you see Crow Valley not allowing something because it's 100 feet up a hill, and you think, well, why would they stop that? This was a good example of some things that happened. There's still lots of other questions with regards to other ones because they're all different. But and I know
Yeah.
that one picture you showed was an extreme. But anyways, I just thought for council to see this and the public, it gives you a little idea of what you're dealing with when it comes to slopes. So I'll open it up to council if there's any questions or comments. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Robert. I really enjoyed your presentation. Very well done.
Thank you. I'm sorry about the technical issues, but I will be putting I will be making a video of this, and once we figure out our Crow Valley YouTube stuff, I'll be actually putting it online with a link on.
You froze up again. This will be a good one to send to our MPP about why we need better
A
internet.
little bit of clarity for people.
We missed a lot of that, Robert, but this will be a good video to send to our MPP to show why we need better internet in the rural areas. So they probably don't deal with this in Toronto. So anyways, Larry, did you have something? You're muted.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment, and I'd like to, first of all, thank Robert. Very informative and all good stuff to keep us informed. From my own experience a little bit, and I'm going to refer to a comment that you made as well regarding mapping. Sometimes what is shown as mapping isn't always as it is, as you mentioned, Robert. So for the general public, when they're dealing with building and our good Crow Valley Conservation Authority, and if you see something that doesn't coincide with what's being said, it's always good to refer to the Crow and get the accurate information. In other words, it can be a plus or it can be a minus for the individual, but it still needs to be brought forward and so it's accurate, in other words. So just a comment there, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is there any more questions or comments for Robert? If not, thank you, Robert. That was a great presentation, and well, we deal with those technical issues all the time, so no problem. Thank you. I'll look for a motion to receive the delegation. Moved by Deputy Mayor Giroux, seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor? Oh, carried. You didn't have anything, did you, Barry? Okay. Okay, thank you, Robert. We're going to move on here. So the next we have is staff reports for information. The first one is with Laura with regards to the Technical Advisory Committee at the county, and the other one is for Bob. Is there any questions on either of those items? If not, I'll take a motion to receive them. Moved by Councillor Webb and seconded by Deputy Mayor Giroux that we received the staff reports for information. All in favor? And that's carried. Next, we'll move into staff reports for follow-up action. Laura, you're back on.
Hi, thank you. So I believe the first one is for the purchase of the Shoreline Crown Reserve on Cashbog Lake. The address is 38 Cashbog Island 8, and it's a pretty straightforward request to purchase the adjacent 66-foot Shoreline Crown Reserve. So I would just ask that council direct staff to advise that the property owner and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry that we have no concerns with or objections to the proposed acquisition of the Shoreline Reserve.
Okay. Is there any questions for Laura? This is something that's been happening over the years, but What's council's thoughts here? Do I have anybody want to speak to it? Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, it's through you, Mr. Mayor. It's pretty straightforward, which is something that's happened in the past we'd approved. So I would move that we approve the recommendation from our planning department.
Okay, moved by Councillor Ellis. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we move into another one there, Laura.
Sure. So this is for a proposed easement. It's a consent application number B-12-21. The purpose of this report is to provide background information regarding a proposed easement application and to seek direction from council. The recommendation is that council advise Peterborough County Land Division that the township would endorse an application for consent for an easement that is referenced in the preliminary severance review report dated December 3rd, 2020 for assessment roll number 153101000760600 as submitted by Mr. Michael Butcher and Ms. Monica Shin, who are the property owners. The condition would be that the registration of the easement is provided to the municipality. So this application is to create an easement. It is in conformity with the official plan and the comprehensive zoning bylaw. As I noted in the report, there was a bylaw assigned to this property in 2003 that stopped up and closed the unopened municipal road allowance. So that is currently owned by the applicants, and it's basically for a bell easement to get internet and phone lines through to neighboring cottage properties.
Okay. All right, then I'll open it up to council here. Councillor Pomeroy. You're muted, Barry. Did we miss the good part?
I got her now. Yes, through you to Laura. On the background of this here, Mr. Shin and Mr. Butcher own the property, but okay. 0.92 hectares and has frontage onto Belmont Lake.
Yes, sorry, I meant to, through you, Mr. Mayor, I meant to address that in my presentation. I put Belmont Lake, it is Jack Lake. My apologies.
Okay. So that'll be corrected.
It will be corrected then.
Yes.
Okay. So Deputy Mayor Dro, do you see anything here as far as land division?
Without looking backwards, Mayor Martin, I don't see anything other than the fact that one time it did go to the water and things happen and then it's not going to the water anymore. So we got to be careful going forward. I did research this the best I could. I don't see why we can't go forward with this.
Yeah, okay. This is an island, is it, Laura?
No, through
No.
you. No, the previous one was an island. This one.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm late on things. Okay, all right then. So what's council's thoughts here? Motion would be that we go with staff recommendations and recommend this to, go ahead, Dave.
Yes, I would recommend we push this on through, accept Laura's recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Pomeroy?
Yeah, with the correction.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, Laura, you wrapped a lot today, eh?
Yeah.
And
So-
Jack's Lake is the star today, so it seems to be all Jack's Lake today. So go ahead.
It sure is. So this report is just asking for council direction to determine a date for the Jack Lake Dryland Boathouse and official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendments, as well as the issue to deem Sharps Bay as at capacity. So there are two options that council can seek. If you are interested in having a public meeting take place on Zoom, I would recommend the date of April 23rd. That would give us enough time to get a notice out to all of the residents on Jack Lake. And we do have a mailing list of every HBM resident on Jack Lake. Option two is that we wait until possibly the end of May or beginning of June to see if we can have an in-person public meeting. So I'm just hoping that council can decide today on whether or not you'd like a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting.
So a combination of the two recommendations there, Laura. I don't mind the Zoom meeting. It might be safer because the way things are going, we don't want to hold this up any longer, but the May is something that we've always worked on as far as May to October, like I said before, to let people get back. And so my suggestion would be that we look for a meeting, maybe in our planning meeting in May, and we can schedule it as Zoom, just to make sure we don't get held up. That's just my thoughts. I'll go ahead, Laura.
So we did have in the fee schedule as provided by FOTEN, we had a timeline associated with it, and we're running about 2 weeks behind right now. So at the time, it was council's prerogative to have this done and wrapped up kind of as quickly as possible. So that's why there was a push to have the meetings done earlier. But again, it's up to everyone here on what they'd like to see.
Okay, just my thoughts, and it is close to May, but go ahead, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
I have to agree with Laura here. We did kind of put a timeline on ourselves to deal with this because of COVID and other reasons. And if we wait too long, we don't really know the timeline after that meeting when council is going to make a decision. So we could be into next year again all of a sudden. So I'd rather move forward as quickly as possible.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion that it sounds like option one is the choice. So if somebody wants to move that, we can move ahead.
I'll make that motion through you, Mr. Mayor. Option one, thank you.
Okay, moved by Councillor Ellis that we go with option one and April 23rd by Zoom. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Webb. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you, Laura. So
All right.
Option one.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I think you guys are done with me for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next, Bob, Integrity Commissioner.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. This, as per the staff report, this report recommends that Mr. Tony Fleming be appointed and retained to act as the Township's Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and municipal ombudsman for our township. Currently, our municipal solicitor is acting in those roles, and best practices would dictate that we make this change.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Webb.
Yeah, just a motion to approve the recommendation.
Okay, moved by Councillor Webb that we approve the recommendation, seconded by Deputy Mayor Giroux. Questions, comments? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next one we have here, Bob, is clerk and acting chief, the safety plan, sorry.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. So this report recommends adoption of the safety plan as recommended by Peterborough Public Health and the provincial government.
So this is our second or third safety plan, and it was updated a couple weeks ago. So council's looking for a recommendation. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
I would recommend it with a comment that I know staff has done quite a bit of work on this, and they've had short notices a couple of times, I do believe. So yes, like make a motion to accept the recommendation.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Giroux and seconded by Councillor Pomeroy. Questions or comments? All in favor? And that's carried. All right, so next we have correspondence. We don't have any action items here, so what's council's thoughts? I would look for a motion that we receive the correspondence.
Motion to receive, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moved by Councillor Webb that we received the correspondence, and seconded by Councillor Pomeroy. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, so next we have, let me catch up here. We're moving too fast here, guys. So next we have committee reports and or liaison reports, and it's pretty straightforward there as far as some of the committees that we've attended. I don't know whether you had anything to add, Dave, but there was going to be something in the future here. I asked Bob that maybe we can add into our agenda and keep it out of here, is the county update. That went really well last week and our last meeting. So between Dave and I, we can do a verbal county update. We can do it here this time, but maybe next time it'll be on the agenda and in a different spot there that we can, we'll speak to that every meeting and try and update council. So Dave, do you have anything there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did give a written account last, I don't know, it was the last meeting. I wasn't sure whether the council wanted to report every meeting or just once a month from the county. I did send our CAO a copy yesterday, I do believe, that he shared with all of council that came from the county. So anyway, we will do a written thing for council, a written report to council once a month or every council meeting. It'll be the preference of the council.
Yeah.
We just need to know when you want it.
So one of the things I was looking at was North Kawarthas had like a verbal every meeting. So we can do it monthly or every meeting, and verbal it works too. Like I did take some notes, I always do, from the meeting, and so does Dave. So I can give you the little highlights of the meeting that pertains to us. And there wasn't as much at the last meeting, but one of the things we had was the Deer River Bridge environmental assessment is gonna, it's a 14 to 16 week construction timeline for that bridge. So it's going to be quite lengthy, and there will be some interruptions this summer, but it's long overdue. The concrete work is what takes the time. They will be bringing the bridge in and assembling it on site and lifting it in, but the concrete work that has to be done is the lengthy part of it. They are going to use the center pier, but they're going to have to re-stabilize the banks, and so there'll be a lot of work there. The county, like Dave and I have been saying, with the modernization, lots of things going on there, and we're going to be doing a lot with the line-by-line review of the entire budget. We're looking for efficiencies wherever we can find them. So Larry, you'll like that one. That's long overdue. And then they talked about the cross culvert replacement on County Road 44. It's a long ways out, but they're already planning for it. It's 2027 is when it's scheduled to be replaced, but they're already starting to get it so it's shovel ready, and if something came up, they could deal with it right away. We talked about our medical officer of health, Dr. Salvatierra, is retiring, and the last thing we had, and it's something that's kind of moving, we're going to have some discussion at this week's meeting with regards to the Peterborough housing and what's going on with the city there. There's a lot of things going on, and we're going to have to keep an eye on that. So there will be a lot of discussion at this week's meeting with regards to Peterborough housing and what the city's trying to do. So it's kind of, Dave and I will keep an eye on that, and that'll probably be part of the update for the next one. But that's all I had wrote down. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Dave.
No, that's and verbal, if council is fine with verbal, that would probably be the easiest for us. So that'd be great.
Okay. Yep. Councillor Ellis, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor and Deputy Mayor Giroux. Verbal, is fine with me. I'll leave it up to everybody else on council to comment, but verbal, and it's just nice for not just council, but for the people in our municipality that follow our meetings to get information and be updated. So a verbal report is fine, but I would prefer weekly or council meetings, each council meeting to have that update, not a monthly, if we could. That's my opinion anyway. I'll leave
No problem.
the rest of council to comment.
Okay, so we are going to be going over a lot of the things, and that's one of the things we have to change our council. I lost the term there, but there's some updates need done on the procedural bylaw, and I know the agenda, it's got a lot of changes that have happened this year. So as we change it, we will add this into there, that we do it weekly. We can leave it at a verbal for now, and if any changes need to be done later, we can. But is that okay with you, Bob?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, that's absolutely fine. And if we choose to move to a written report, staff is happy to assist in formalizing that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, and most of the stuff as far as conference calls, they've been spread out to every 2 weeks. They're kind of staggered between Dave and Miriam, but we did have one last week, and she did reassure me as far as Aon, or not Aon, the VIA, that they're still in talks. So it's not, let's see where that goes. But I'm glad to hear that the budget is coming up, and that's the same for the province here. Their budget's coming out soon. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on to see how it affects us or how it helps us. So I would say effect is more than help, but we'll see what happens. So anyways, that's all I have. So as far as this report here, I would look for a motion that we receive the report or the update. Bob, go ahead. Oh,
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Deputy Mayor Giroux did have a report regarding EOTA. He may wish to speak to that.
yeah, sorry about that, Dave. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mayor Martin, members of council. Perhaps council thinks this report is long overdue, but up until now, there wasn't any conclusion to give to council. So you have my report. It was respectfully submitted as chair of the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance. This report has been approved by the board, and I am pretty sure that all members or all municipalities that are affected by EOTA will have this report. So for those that outside council chambers that may not read or get a chance to read this report, I don't know how far, Mayor Martin, you want me to delve into this, or if there's just simply ask council if they have any questions on the report. This report stems all the way back to the latter part of 2018, where the Reader's Digest version is EOTA and the OFA TV had a handshake or an agreement that we used each other's trails. Our trails are multi-use trails, and their trails were simply motorized ATV side-by-side trails. We realized that, first of all, we weren't really covered well enough with insurance, and OFA TV decided that they would give their riders a discount of $25, which put us in jeopardy of losing permit sales. So we ended that agreement. There was a lot of unrest over it, social media, so on. A lot of fingers were pointed to EOTA, but we were only protecting our own interest and so on. In perhaps the early part or mid part of 2020, Hastings County and the province of Ontario, who own the Hastings Heritage Trails, which we have a license of occupation for. Hastings County decided that they would like a meeting to take place between OFATV and EOTA to try and reach an agreement that OFATV could raid the trails for tourism in Hastings County on those trails without obtaining a permit. There was a lot of discussion, but the manager, myself, and the board decided that this wasn't possible unless the Ontario government allowed EOTA to break the agreement with the government. It clearly states that we can't, I won't get into that. We thought it clearly stated that we couldn't break that agreement to allow that. Hastings County went to the right departments in the government and got a ruling on it. And the ruling was that as long as we were provided the proper insurance, that we would be totally covered, that we could perhaps move forward. We could move forward with the agreement. So Hastings County, EOTA will be fully indemnified by OFATV at no cost to EOTA, and Hastings County will provide dollars to the EOTA with the extra cost of maintenance on the trails due to the extra riders. I don't agree with this. I never did. I don't think it's a good business practice to have two identities riding the trails, one paying and the taxpayer paying for the other one. So anyway, I have signed the agreement and the manager signed the agreement, and that's where it stands today. We're hoping that OFATV will come to the board with money, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So any questions? I'd be glad to answer them.
All right, then. Yeah, that's one of the questions or comments I have, Dave, is with, like you say, with the numbers. I think this even fuels more that we need to look at our bylaw here and update it too, to go with the higher rate of traffic and how we're doing things around here too. So it's kind of timely that this is coming in now. This might be able to tie into our future discussions with regards to ATVs and how we deal with the trails around here. So is there any questions or comments from council? Councilor Ellis, go ahead.
Just a quick one to Deputy Mayor Giroux. So the long and the short of it, and cut to the chase, what does it mean to somebody that's wanting to ride the trail? The change that you refer to, Dave.
Well, the change that I refer to, and I'm afraid, I tried to share a map with you. Unfortunately, the map I got wasn't the right map. So the Reader's Digest version is, if we leave our municipality and we travel east on the CPE line, when we get to Marmora Lake, we're entering into Hastings County. Until we hit just past Tweed, we are still in Hastings County. So I am an EOTA permit holder, so I can ride all those trails. If I was a permit holder of Ontario Federation of ATV Clubs, I could ride those trails without obtaining an EOTA permit. And that trail actually goes from near Corbyville in the south all the way to Lake St. Peter. So in my district, I support EOTA and I can ride all those trails. But if I live in Bancroft or Lake St. Peter and I'm an OFATV member, I don't have to buy an EOTA permit, even though we maintain and manage and pay for all the uprage, which is almost $1,000 a kilometer for trails. So all they have to have is an OFATV permit. It's not kosher as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you. That makes it a little clearer. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
All right, so is there any other questions for Dave? If not, Bob, is it okay to receive them as a whole, receive these reports all with one motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor, Mayor Martin, absolutely.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Webb that we received the, oh, do you have something? Sorry.
Economic development.
Oh, okay. It's not, I didn't see it on here.
Yeah, sorry. It might be coming to the next meeting, but I'll just give you a heads up because we had our new group for the economic development. I believe it was a week from last Friday. Some very good discussions in terms of fostering ideas on how to get some of this COVID relief out to our local business community, provide some relief to them. We had very good discussion. The mayor was at the meeting, and the plan is to hopefully have a report come back to the first meeting in April with some suggestions or recommendations for council on how we can, get some of these funds out to these businesses to help them out. One other thing we discussed was town signage. I know as a council, we've discussed that a few times over the last couple of years. So what we're looking at is trying to kind of unify our branding for the township. At numerous locations, we have different signs with different designs and different decals on them. And what we're looking at is trying to come to an agreement on one logo or one sign for the town of Havelock. So we'll be working on that as well. I don't know if that will be coming as soon as early April, but that's something that I hope to have to you hopefully by the start of May. So, and I guess to encompass it, it's more of a branding strategy for the town in terms of what I'm hearing, what I'm reading comments. The logos on our trucks are different from the logos on our town signs, stuff like that. And maybe if we can synchronize a lot of that, what we put out to the public will seem a lot more appealing. So just so people know that those two items should be coming in the next month or so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Hard. Yeah, the branding, what was discussed was the cost of branding can be really expensive. So, the simple way is looking at what we're doing now and trying to make all of them look the same, and you can use what we have, or we can get into an actual branding, get right into looking at how our branding and whether it's to happen now or next term, that'll be the discussion at the next meeting. But so we look forward to that in April. We'll get that report onto the agenda and we'll deal with it then. So with that, I'll look for a motion that we receive the reports. Moved by Councillor Ellis, seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, I don't have any written notice of motion. Is there any oral notice of motion? Seeing none. New business. I have no new business items listed on here. So go ahead, Councillor Webb, and then Councillor Pomeroy. You're muted.
Sorry. We've discussed this numerous times here, and I'm sure the rest of council has heard from people. The situation down at Tim Hortons is getting worse by the day. I don't know. I know that's a county issue, but I guess I look to you, Mr. Mayor, or Deputy Mayor, in terms of, has there been any movement on that? Because I was down there on Sunday and there was at least 7 or 8 cars parked on the shoulder of the road going back to the north, coming out of the drive-through. And, like, as we said before, it's an accident waiting to happen. And so I'm just wondering, I know we've brought it up here numerous times, is the county acting on this in any way?
Yeah, we just passed it last week or last meeting or the meeting before, and I don't think it was on our report. So about no parking zone there. Signs will be installed. We're working out kind of like the same as our municipality with parking tickets. We're trying to work that side of it out with bylaw enforcement. The county may end up hiring their own bylaw enforcement officer so we can deal with some of these issues. So it is a work in progress. It has gone through, I forget where the line, it goes right up to, I think it's Alexander Street, no parking. And that'll be taken care of. Go ahead, Dave.
I didn't mean to interfere or interrupt you, Mayor Martin. I shouldn't have put my hand up when you were speaking. But that was on my last report, where these signs are going on Concession Street, on Ontario Street and so on. And yeah, we'll inquire Councillor Webb to when that might be happening. But I think we realize that that's not going to solve the problem. And you're right, we do have a problem. Even yesterday, there were cars parked in the travel portion of the road going north. When you come around making a right-hand turn from Highway 7, you had nowhere to go because they were waiting to get into Tim Hortons. So I don't know what the solution is, but we can't stop trying to figure one out. So thank you for your comments, and we will ask when perhaps these signs may go up. But I think Tim Hortons may be on the hook to get their own parking lot or something there. I don't know what's going on.
Thank you to you and the mayor for staying on top of it.
Okay, Councillor Ellis, or Councillor Pomeroy, is this related to the discussion here, Larry?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead, and then I'll go to Councillor Pomeroy.
Well, just a quick comment. I don't think anybody believes that signage is going to change the situation. COVID-19 have created problems for Tim Hortons, as we've seen on Sunday, as Councillor Webb indicates. The inner part of the restaurant is closed, so everybody has to do the drive-through, and that's what created the problem on Sunday. But my comment is, I don't think signage is going to address the issue.
Yeah, I did talk to the owner of Tim Hortons about this, and there was some things he did say COVID has changed things because people aren't going in the store, so the lineups are bigger because the orders are bigger in the drive-thru where people used to go in. He's trying to deal with it himself. Staffing is another issue as far as trying to keep full staff on to keep things moving, and he said he's doing the best he can, and he is working on it. But I think it is something that the county will have to look at. We're dealing with the parking, but we will have to maybe do another traffic study there or something to see how we can get a turning lane or something. There's not much room there. They did a traffic study to get in there, but now we're seeing these effects, and it has been worse since COVID has happened here, and just the change of flow. But we will work with the county and see what we can do there, Councillor Webb. But I'll open up to Councillor Pomeroy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have, one really important one is COVID shots for seniors. I've had some phone calls, and they're quite concerned. Most of them don't have a computer, and the person that was a spokesperson for most of the group that she's in said, and we can't drive to Peterborough. And most of them don't have kids around anymore for to look after them. And they want to know why they can't set up something in Havelock. It's something very, well, it sounds like an easy solution to me, but if they came out with their mobile thing and even went to the Peterborough housing units and did each one of those, there's about 24 units in each of the ones down by the park. They could get those, and the new one over on Smith Drive. But the ones that are still living here, they said, well, they're going to have one in Norwood, but we can't get on we don't have a computer, so we try to phone them. Well, you can't get through. So then we got a new number yesterday. Guess what? You can't get through yet. So these people are quite frustrated. Most of them are over 80 and find it very difficult. And they get a little contrary here. And so what are you fellas down there going to do about it? I said, well, it's the Peterborough County Health Unit to set things up. I said, I did inquire with Bob, and he said that we had offered our arena to do this. And, you know, the result or the questions that I had was, okay, now they know that through experience that our township is the greatest in age in Canada, you know, like one of the top ones across Canada, not just in Peterborough County. And they have the figures from when they were going to build the long-term care that will verify that. So I said, you know, you're putting my back up against the wall, but I said, I can't do anything, but I'm going to bring it up at council and see if council can act together and try to do something for these people, you know, locally, whether it be, you know, go down to the arena. And like they say, well, we don't want big, long lineups.
So the question, Barry, maybe you can get to the question.
Well, the question is, are we going to do anything for them?
Yeah, so I'll leave it with Bob. It was staff that was working with the CAOs to come up with the locations, and the only location for the county, I think it was because it was central, was the Norwood Community Center. So it does Otonabee, Duro, Norwood, and ourselves. We did put in that we would be able to accommodate, and that was the first plan they came up with. As far as the congregated settings, it's like Mapleview and things like that, they have a mobile unit that's going around, and I would think that I would hope that they might be able to go over to Smith Drive, but they are dealing with the those type of settings with a mobile unit to take care of everyone at once. But as far as the public, Bob, go ahead and you can update us.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin, just to confirm some of the points that have already been made, the CAO groups, the group has been meeting with Peterborough Public Health on a regular basis. Initially, we did offer the Havelock Community Center as a vaccine site, and that may yet be used. Certainly not in phase one at this point. I suspect that going further down the road, we will see vaccinations taking place at the community center. The initial rollout with respect to everyone 80 and over has just started, and I think very much through most of this COVID process, a lot of these things are being figured out as we go here. So this initial rollout, Peterborough Public Health chose 3 locations. Unfortunately, Havelock was not one of them. Norwood is our location within our vicinity. It's the only location within the townships in Peterborough County. The other 2 locations are in the city of Peterborough. One is at the Evinrude Center and one is at the hospital. So that's where the rest of the county will go if they choose not to go to Norwood. So that's the way it stands at the moment. We're still figuring out logistics of perhaps helping people to get to their appointment or make their appointment. We're still working through some of those details. We're passing along the information as soon as we get it with respect to phone numbers and how this is all working, but I think we're all trying to figure it out as we go. We're certainly continuing to work on it, and these have become almost daily conversations now. So there will be many more to come.
So part of the phone line thing there, the way the Peterborough Health Unit, they went with the province's model or the province's system. And there's 6 health units that went with the province because we're small, couldn't afford the system that it would take to be able to do this online or do the phone in. So, and there was an issue across the province with regards to this. I've seen it as far as friends in Muskoka that we're trying to get through and couldn't. Same message kept coming up, but The good thing is with the seniors buildings, they are mostly done. Most of them have had their second shot, and it was a 90% rate for taking the shot. So that's a good thing. There will be glitches here, and that's what the health unit was trying to say yesterday is, unfortunately, the city offered their phone system to go with this thing with the province, and it went down yesterday with so many calls. That's technology. They did work on it, came up with the other number. It didn't work either. But by late in the day yesterday, a lot were getting through, and a lot in our township have doctors in Trent Hills, and their doctors got them in over there. So they will be getting their shots at the fire hall over in Campbellford. So anyways, it is a work in progress, lots of glitches, but hopefully they can make it a little smoother, and we are on the list as far as having a place here. A lot of the doses won't be out till after the end of March anyway. So go ahead, Larry.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, without prolonging the conversation here, I'd like to thank Councillor Pomeroy for bringing that issue forward. Like he says, a lot of people in our municipality don't understand why we weren't chosen here. So I would like to see through you, Mr. Mayor, and our CAO, Bob Angioni, to question to see either mobile units or the ability or the possibility of having our municipality as a place to get the shots, because as Councillor Pomeroy said, we all know the demographics tell us the aged population here, and it's hard to understand why we weren't chosen to begin with. But I would like questioning done to see if it's going to be a location for us.
Okay, Bob, I'm sure you can bring that up at your next meeting this week, or I think you can even phone them today and see if you can get an answer. But I think you pretty well answered it. They are doing mobile already, and it's a work in progress. So that they will get here. They did say that it's just not on the first wave here, but they will get onto it. So Councillor Webb and then Councillor Pomeroy.
No, I'm okay.
Okay, go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, further to our comments, if you can't, these people are 80 and over, most of them, and if you can't get through and they're only doing shots for over 80, how in hell are they going to know where you are, or how do you know when you're going to be able to get a shot? It's very, very, it's terrible communications on the public health unit part, because you can reach out, and a mobile unit isn't going to help unless they got somewhere to go, and you're going to miss a lot of people, because a lot of people don't know how to get to be vaccinated. So I don't know, it would be nice to have a central place where you could, even some of these people could go and register, help them get registered. It's barbaric the way that it's set up. I don't know, the health unit thinks it's great, but it's a mess as far as I'm concerned.
They apologized last night, Barry, and it was just a thing with the phone lines going down, and they're looking at it's supposedly fixed last night. So let's see what happens today. They are working on it. It's a complicated thing. It's not as simple as everyone thinks. So they're doing the best they can, and the staff did the best they could as far as we tried to get it into Havelock, and I'm sure Duro and Otonabee South Monaghan tried to get it into there, but right now they picked a central thing to try and make this happen, and the mobile thing is there for the congregated settings. So let's see what happens this week. Yesterday was the first day. The shots weren't even happening until Monday, so let's just get this. Let's see what happens today. Go ahead.
Yeah. So can we get an update? Maybe Bob send it out today on the phone number that we're going to use from here on in for a while, so I can pass this on to some of our constituents.
It was sent yesterday, but go ahead, Bob. I sent it out to a lot of people, but go ahead, Bob. Maybe we can even say it right now.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. First of all, I'd like to assure council that I will continue to advocate for our township, and whatever we can do to expedite this process and getting vaccines here in our township, we will do so. With respect to sharing the information, we have been, anything we've received from Peterborough Public Health, not only have we been sharing with council, but we've been sharing with our ratepayer groups as well. So anyone we have, any groups we have emails for, we've been sending it out there. So we will continue to do so. And we're also, of course, advertising on our website and through our social media accounts. So we're getting the message out as quickly as it's being brought to us.
Okay, go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, well, it seems to me there's too many messages being sent out. Just send out something that's relevant for what for what we need. You know, these people are.
We have to read the messages where they are coming out, and there's sometimes 3 or 4 a day. But that's how fast things are moving. It's I did have the number here, I think, but I don't want to. I didn't write down anything around it, Bob. But if you wanted to give Councillor Pomeroy the number again, he would have it for his to give to the people. But it's a 249 number.
Yeah, is that the one or is it the other one?
No, this is the. I don't want to say it in case it's something else from yesterday. So you did send it out yesterday, Bob, and I gave that to a lot of people. So we can do it at the end of the meeting or later on. You can have the number, Barry. It's in an email from yesterday.
I can see it. Well, we have a closed session, so maybe I can find out then.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I'll check the messages from yesterday, and I'll certainly send that phone number out.
Okay. All right then. So is there anything other? There was nothing listed under new business. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion that we get that number, or we go out of new business and move into the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Webb, seconder. Councillor Ellis. All in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, next we move into bylaws, and the first bylaw here was a bylaw to appoint Tony Fleming of law firm Cunningham with regards to our closed meeting investigator and integrity commissioner. Moved by Councillor Webb, seconded by Deputy Mayor Giroux. All in favor? And that's carried. And the next bylaw we have here is a bylaw providing for licensing, registration, and regulation of keeping and running at large dogs. This is a dog tag bylaw, Bob, is that?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. This is the bylaw which updates the pricing as discussed at a previous council meeting.
All right. Okay, what's council's moved by Councillor Webb, seconder? Is there anybody to second that one? Councillor Ellis? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. All right, the next bylaw is a confirming bylaw to confirm today's meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Giroux, seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. And our next is the motion to adjourn. Councillor Pomeroy and Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried.